I'm going to write out the solutions to the function machine assigned questions. And I'll just talk my way through them as I go. And so if you're confused about any steps, hopefully this can serve to be helpful to you. All right. So you have to do questions 3, 6, 8, and 10. Okay. So we'll start with question 3, 2. Oh, pardon me, and 6. Haha. All right. Consider the statement g of negative 3 is equal to 5/6. So you want to say that verbally. So you might actually write g of negative 3 equals 5/6. All right. Draw a function machine picture to represent this statement. Well, I immediately regret writing directly on here instead of getting some paper because I clearly need more room for my work than I have. So my solution here is going to just be to write this very small. I might actually zoom in a little bit to make sure that people can see what I'm doing. Draw a function machine. Okay, so that really is the process of deciding what's the input here. The input is negative 3. It's going to go into the function. Function is g. And g. And out comes 5/6. So we don't know anything else about what this function does, but we know that if you put negative 3 in, you'll always get 5/6. And that's all you know. In fact, I think when I zoomed in, it doesn't quite focus as much, so I'm just going to refocus. That should be a little clearer for you. Okay. And lastly, describe this statement in words using precise and accurate language. So the way I would do that is I would say, when this function, or maybe I can be more precise than this function actually. Let's say when g receives an input of negative 3, comma, its output is 5/6. That's it. That's really all we're doing here. We're just making sure we really understand the notation here. We need to be able to look at that and understand what it means, not just recognize it as some symbols. All right, next, say this statement verbally. Okay, that's H. I don't know how to spell H, so I'm just going to write the letter H of apple equals star. Okay. Draw a function machine. Oh, great, I got to draw a picture of the apple. I'm sorry, guys, for making you do this. What a big jerk I am. All right, so I'm going to draw a little apple. Not so bad. This could have been worse, apple, to be honest. I really thought it was going to go terribly. And a little thing there. Cool. And that goes inside the function. The function machine is called H. It says name. That's all the H means. Just a name. And when you do this, the output is a black star. Simple enough. And I can describe this statement. I'm going to try and see if I can maybe describe the statement slightly differently. Okay, so I'd say, let's say H is a function. And when apple is input, star is output. Because input and output can also be verbs sometimes. I'm going to treat them as verbs in this case. All right, so there's a few different ways. There's no one answer that's correct here for how you describe it in words. So you can choose one that works for you. All right, moving on to 6. So we told for the function f, the output is half the input. So what is the output for each of these functions? Determine the following. Well, the input here is 4. So the output is half of that, 2. That's all. That's all we're doing. Half of negative 32 is negative 16. Half of 0 is 0. Half of 1 is a half. Half of 3/4 is, well, 3/4 times 1/2 That's 3 times 1, 3, and 4 times 6, 8. Another way to say half of this is to just multiply the bottom by 2. Half of pi, well, that's pi halves. That's going to become a useful idea later on in our course. And the question is, for what input does this function f give an output of 100? Well, if this function takes inputs and halves them, then the input must be 200. X equals 200. And that means that f of 200 equals 100, which follows the same logic we've been using here. All right, on to question 8. So what do we got here? The function machine picture 98 goes into this function called t, and 37 is output. So we'll describe in words what this picture represents. I kind of just did that. I'll write it out as well. You can see what it would look like if I wrote it. It says, when t receives, is that how you spell receives? I always get the I and E mixed up. I think it is backwards, actually. An input of 98, it outputs 37. Okay. And the symbolic representation of this is t of 98. The input of 98 gives us 37. All right, and lastly, 10. We have, okay, Ty has 30 boxes of chocolate almonds she's trying to sell for $2.50 each. All right, I'm going to read this slowly. So it sounds like Ty has 30 boxes of chocolate. And it also sounds relevant that she's trying to sell them for $2.50 each. I want X to be the number of boxes she sold, and R of X to be her revenue, the amount of money she makes. Revenue means how much you make as a function. Now, we're not actually asked to represent this. We're just asked, well, what's the domain of this function, R? In other words, what kind of inputs can go in? Well, it looks like she could sell 0 boxes, 1 box, 2 boxes, 3 boxes, but she couldn't sell more than 30. Now, maybe to take a second, let's think of an example here. So we've got the R function. So if the input, if she sells 4 boxes, well, we know the output will tell us our revenue, how much money she makes. That's 4 250s. 4 250s is $10. Okay, just so we're clear on how that works. The question for the domain is, what kind of inputs can this function accept? It can really only accept integers between 0 and 30, including 0 and including 30. It would be easy to put 1 to 30, but you got to recognize she can sell 0. The way we write this, we don't have to write them all down, comma, and we just say dot, 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 and we'll say 29, 30. The range, so what's important here is that by listing them, you might have thought that the answer would be 0 is less than or equal to x, which is less than or equal to 30. But this implies you can have values, numbers of boxes that she sells that are in between 1 and 2, or 0 and 1. And that's not the case. She's selling entire boxes. Or it doesn't say that explicitly, but we infer that. And the question is, okay, what's the range? Well, each of these values in the domain correspond to a range. So 0, of course, when it's input, outputs 0. 1, when it's input, outputs 250. 2, when it's input, outputs $5. I can use the same ellipses here, dot, dot, dot. 29, when it's input, I don't know, for 147.50. I think I'm going to just make sure the calculator. 29 times. Yeah, I was way off. That's why it's good to check with a calculator sometimes. That's 72.50. and 30 250s. 30 250s is, yeah, that's 75. Okay, that makes sense. 75. And there we go. That's the range. All right. And that is that. In the next video, I will put up the solutions to the assigned questions from the formula as functions assignment.